realize I did all that. Really appreciate APAC for having me here tonight. This is my second night here. In a couple days, I was just here for the Army-Navy game. I tell you, Philadelphia, you really know how to treat a veteran. I just wish that the other night was as memorable as tonight is. So my Army friends, they really got a razz out of it. So as he stated, my name is Michael Little. I'm a 15-year combat disabled Navy veteran from McLeansboro, Illinois. And currently I reside in Cape May, New Jersey, where my wife is serving as a hospital corpsman in charge of the dental department at Coast Guard Boot Camp. During my first tour in the Navy, my job was to guard some of the most dangerous terrorists our world has ever known. I was tasked with guarding men who had murdered journalists, men who had sacrificed the lives of innocent women and children in the name of jihad. Some of these men were the masterminds behind 9/11, the organizers of terrorist bombings all over the world, and some of these men even led attacks on U.S. service members that I served with. By the time I returned home from combat, I had lost 15 friends to suicide, my shipmates. In 2011, I too attempted suicide after fighting with demons of war and the hardships of reintegration. It was with the help of my family and friends that I was able to overcome this pain and suffering and turn it into something positive by eventually starting my own lobbying firm focused on advocating for fellow veterans. While researching mental health treatments for veterans in college, I discovered the state of Israel. It was my research that taught me that Israel has one of the lowest suicide rates among its veterans because they implement real mental health treatment in every level of service and embed mental health professionals in every infantry and army division. Using this research, I then moved my focus to working on improving other issues facing veterans and military personnel. As a result of my research and advocacy, I have been honored to advise presidents, every member of Congress since 2014, and just recently, the U.S. Supreme Court on matters related to military and veteran affairs. And that is why earlier this year, as a part of AIPAC's effort to engage politically connected veterans in the Washington, D.C. area, I was honored to be selected by American Israeli Education Foundation to participate in a veteran educational mission to Israel. To say this mission was moving would be an incredible understanding. We met the people, we toured the country, we visited military and historical sites, but there were two very impactful moments for me that summed up my week. First, visiting Yad Vashem. Ever since I was young, I remember learning about the Holocaust. But it was honestly something I was never able to truly conceptualize until I visited Israel's Holocaust Museum. Before my visit, the Holocaust to me was a horrific event that had happened in the past. But after entering the Children's Memorial at Yad Vashem, I was able to see firsthand in my own mind in a way that I had never thought was possible. When you walk into the Children's Memorial, there's a statue to honor Eziel Spiegel, a small child who was murdered at Auschwitz. He has his finger over his lips, and in the military, that tells you that there's danger ahead. I'm sure many of you have been there, so you know that as you enter, light is divested from the area. I found myself standing in total darkness until I reached that one single candle. There were mirrors all around and make it look as if millions of candles are in front of you. Hearing the names of the children that were murdered as I was looking around the room, I could see their faces in my mind. Two young children, Dina Bresler and Isaac Mejer Brenner, were murdered in the death camp in Shelno in August of 1942. They were 2 years old and 9 months old. My friends, my own children are 2 years old and 9 months old. For the first time in my life, I truly conceptualized what this would be like. As I walked out towards the bronze statue of children, I no longer seen victims that were strangers. I saw my own children in their eyes. I heard my children's voices speaking, And I remembered the sounds of war from my military service at the same time. I remembered the pictures of the Nazis that I had seen as I went through Yad Vashem. And I realized I had seen the same images in the eyes of the detainees that I had guarded in Iraq and Afghanistan. For the first time in my life, I felt like I understood. I understood the pain and felt the fear for my children as I worry about the war on terrorism that we are facing today. The second most impactful moment for me was when we visited Kibbutz Kfar Asa, which is on the border of the Gaza Strip. As we toured the kibbutz, we met with members of the community. Each person we met, we could hear the fear in their voices. We saw the reluctance of their children who wanted to play, but they were too scared of an attack coming in from just miles away. An attack, my friends, that happened just mere days before we arrived. It led me to think about a conversation I had with my wife before I left for Israel. She had just dropped her children off at daycare. At the time, I thought how great it was that my wife was serving in the Coast Guard and I was off abroad in Israel and our children were safe. But those thoughts immediately changed when I arrived at the kibbutz and saw the children's daycare. The building housing the daycare was made of concrete and windows that were bulletproof glass. A daycare. I remember looking at white splotches on the wall and wondering, maybe they were just testing samples. I asked the guide, what is this? What are these splotches? And was quickly informed that it was plaster, covering the holes from mortars that once hit the building. Friends, this was not a military outpost. This was a building where children were sleeping. A building where my children could have been sleeping. These are the same mortars that were flying into my bases in Iraq and Afghanistan on a nightly basis. These are the same mortars that caused my brain injury and left me with a lifelong impact of PTSD. Mortars that are used in war were being fired upon innocent people living in the kibbutz from the Hamas insurgents living within the Gaza Strip. Every home that we toured had to be protected by a safe room. A safe room provided by the government of Israel. A safe room that should be available for emergencies, but not these safe rooms. These safe rooms were where children were sleeping because they feared they wouldn't have time to get there safely in the night. No one in the world should have to live in this type of fear. No one. When I returned home from the mission, I knew I had a role to play in keeping Israel safe. Because of everything I experienced on my trip, because of my children, because I believe that nobody should live in fear of warlike attacks, I have decided a way to keep Israel safe is by supporting the one organization that works each and every day to strengthen the relationships between the United States and Israel. That is why I became a Washington Club member of AIPAC. And I challenge everyone in the room to do the same. I made this decision because AIPAC needs my help. It needs your help. Your support of AIPAC will allow more veterans to travel to Israel to see what I saw, to experience what I experienced, and to come home better, stronger, more engaged. Your support of AIPAC will help ensure that every candidate for Congress is educated about the threats that face the U.S. and her ally every single day. Your support allows AIPAC to invite every single member of Congress to experience Israel firsthand. Take it from me, my friends. That is the only way that they will truly understand what their vote on Capitol Hill is all about. If you're already a club member, I want to thank you. But ask yourself if you can do a little more. Not just because, but do it for the safety and security of not only Israel, but of the United States. I want to thank AIPAC for having me tonight. If you're a veteran in the room, American or Israeli, thank you for your service. Welcome home. Thank you. May God bless the United States, Israel, and all of us.